How do you tell that your child is hungry? Part of your goals this year as a parent should be to get closer to your kids, to know them, to understand your children better. And one way of understanding your children, 0 to 2 years basically of age, before they start talking and telling you that they're hungry, one way you could understand them is by knowing how they communicate when they are hungry. So number one thing you'll be looking at for a 0 to 3 months of age baby is their hands. Whether the palms are open like this or closed like this. Welcome to this channel. My name is Amy. I'm glad you spared time. I upload at least 2 videos every day on issues of motherhood and parenting. And in this special episode, I'm talking about how to tell when your child is hungry, especially the children that have not started communicating. So if you're new, welcome. Please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing the content on this page. So back to the story. When your children basically 0 to 3 months of age, they are born. Most of the time, their hands they'll be folding their palms like this. When they open, is just shortly after feeding, they open their palms, but basically they will always be closing their palms like this. That is because they're insecure. They find security in staying anxious all the time. Yeah, anxious all the time. And hunger is one of the things that could make a child insecure. So you need to see if your child is folded arms like this, chances are they could be sick, they could be hungry. It's one telltale sign of knowing they're hungry. But basically, this how to know your child is hungry. The signs I've placed them into two: the subtle signs, SUBTLE signs, and the advanced signs. Subtle signs, number one, you observe their hands. If it's folded like this, they could be hungry. Another thing, they lick. Number two is licking or smacking of their upper lips. If your child was just silent and then they started doing that, this is for 0 to, before they are weaned mostly, you could, one of the things you start gazing around is maybe my child is hungry. And smacking and licking of the upper jaw leads to their cry, which I'll be discussing later in this video. But also watch in the description box, there's a link on how to know what your baby is communicating through cry. You could consider watching that video. So when your child is smacking and licking their lips, like there's a viral video which I really love that has shown how a child kissed air. Like the child kissed air and then they let out a big cry because he or she did not find food. But basically, as they lick their upper jaw, they are just trying to find if there is food around there. And that could be a sign that they're hungry. Number two, obviously, they're moving their lips, moving their mouths. If they're opening and closing their mouths, moving, they want to make some sound. Your guesses could start from, could they be hungry? Is that okay? Because they're just trying to find food. Another thing is they're rubbing their head around this area, around your body. If someone carries them, they're rubbing. This is because they are seeking for the breast, the wonders of this world. A child is born today, they already know this is where the breast area, and it's the breast that produce milk. Things like that. They're rubbing against you, against someone who is carrying them. That could be they're hungry, they're seeking for where food is. For advanced children, they start shaking their head, moving their head. One of your guesses, if you see that, if your child was just quiet, they started smacking their lips, and then they started licking their upper jaw, and then they opened their mouth, and then they're rubbing against anybody who is carrying them, and then they're moving their head. You are right, Mama. Your guess is good as mine. Your child could be hungry. And then we go to the children who have already started weaning, they're already eating, they already know a few things, and they could be hitting somebody or just trying to calling to attention. Or they see food and you see your child is advancing towards food. Or they see food passing, it has nothing to do with you. Probably you're in a supermarket and you pass the aisle which has food in it and you see your child is excited about it, about food. Those ones who have already known how to start communicating, like my boy would say something like food, food, or bread. Bread, when you hear bread, for him it's food. He's hungry. These are signs for those who are already winning and started to talk or starting to communicate in one or the other. These are signs that your child is hungry. My boy, for example, would say bread in the morning. It means it's time for breakfast or cereals, not necessarily bread. Bread in the afternoon, it's time to have lunch, mama. Bread in the evening, it's time to have supper, mama. It's not necessarily that they want bread. So you could listen in to your son or your child, whatever they are saying. Some of them could be calling chapati. Everything is chapati. That means they are hungry. Making sounds that are related to food, that they relate with food, or they get excited when food passes, or they make cooing sounds when they see food. That could mean that your child is hungry. Those are all subtle clues to see, to read from and know that your child is hungry. And then there is the advanced one, which is obviously for a child who's not pronouncing words yet. Cry, the cry. As I've said, there's a link in the description box which discusses all those cries, but the hunger cry specifically is ne. It produces the sound ne. The baby is licking the upper part of the jaw. Nah. When you listen for those cries from a distance, a little distance, you hear the sound better. So all this could show that your child is hungry and needs your attention. It's important, dear mama, to respond, to understand this cue so you respond quicker, because you don't want to disappoint your child. Your child should have the confidence in you that you will answer their call whenever they are hungry. And this confidence and you responding timely helps build the bonding between the two of you. And in the few frequent next videos, I'll be talking about how to bond with your child better. So subscribe to be amongst the first people to get that in content when it comes up. Also, for a child who is 0 to 3 months or who is being breastfed, yeah, 0 to 3 months is still exclusive breastfeeding. Parents, please do exclusive breastfeeding. For a child that type, it becomes easier to even breastfeed them or bottle feed them when you respond to their cues quite early, to their signals of hunger quite early. You can imagine trying to place your nipple and areola in the mouth of a baby who is already fussy and agitated and is uncontrollably crying. That is when you'll have issues of nipples and issues which have in the description box. Thank God Super Mama Amy has already talked about breastfeeding challenges, breastfeeding problems, and solving some of them. Please watch for that video and my videos on breastfeeding and affordable foods to boost breast milk production, which will all be in the description box. You can imagine trying to feed a child who is fussy. So it becomes easier if you read the signs early and you fed them. The process of feeding becomes easier. How will you know that your child is, now that we're talking about a child who is hungry, a child who's full, one, you will see they relax their palms. If they were breastfeeding or bottle feeding, they relax their palms. But basically, they slowly withdraw from feeding. They withdraw from the breast. Some of them even fall right into sleep. That could be a sign that they are full. The one who is feeding already, they would just stop eating. You insist on it, the baby was eating well, and then you insist and they stop. Chances are the baby is full, okay? Though sometimes you have to know, for those who are feeding, some of them are not just good feeders, but we all want good feeders for children. And so basically they just withdraw slowly. Don't insist again, you could choke your child. Choking is not a laughing matter, by the way, here. No, 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 don't insist on food, okay? At least you, as a parent, you'll be able to know what is enough, what is not enough. If all these signs fail, you fail to interpret all these cues, basically you could just look at how frequent you fed your child. For 0 to 1 year of age, please feed your child every 2 hours. Because their stomach is small, the food will be contained for a shorter time than your big stomach or your larger stomach, for lack of a better word. Don't be stressed that this child is eating frequently all the time. How will they fit into the 3 meal like it's standard? We have lunch, supper, dinner, lunch, breakfast, and supper. Basically, don't stress. Baby will just fall into place. If you want to know how baby will fall into place, look at yourself. You think you had 3 meals a day as a young child, as a baby? You probably had more, but today you've just fit in. it will fall into place. But for a child who is below 1 year of age, please consider feeding them every 2 hours. So if it's after 2 hours since the last feeding and you are not seeing these cues, you might just want to bring the food along and see how baby responds. If they don't want, well and good, but at least you tried and baby is not hungry. So that's it. That's watch out for the next video. This is how to tell that your child is hungry. I hope you learned a few things or two. Please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing this content. Okay? Bye.